Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to take a close look at a review you shared. It's Mary Munoz on the film Mexico '86 over on the Moviescramble site.
Right. And it seems like a really interesting piece to dig into.
Yeah, our goal is basically to unpack this review, see what it tells us about the director, Cesar Diaz, and his film.
Kind of get under the hood, the themes, the style.
Exactly, and this sort of experience it's trying to create for you, the viewer.
It sounds like right from the start, we're dealing with some pretty heavy subject matter.
Definitely, the Guatemalan Civil War. But the review suggests it's filtered through a very personal lens.
Yeah, intimate stories, it sounds like, rather than just a huge historical overview.
Okay, so let's start there. Mary Munoz points out that this isn't exactly new ground for Diaz, right? Exploring this specific conflict.
No, not at all. The review highlights it as a recurring theme. In his work, the horrors of the war often tied to personal narratives.
Especially mother-son relationships, it seems.
She mentions his earlier films, Our Mothers, from 2019.
And Territorial Liberato from 2014.
That's the one. So there's a clear pattern there. And, the review notes, Mexico '86 is actually dedicated to his own mother.
Wow, okay. That makes it incredibly personal.
Hugely. It really frames how we should probably approach the film's story.
And that story, according to the review, centers on Maria, played by Berenice Bejo.
Yeah, she's described as an activist with the Guatemalan Liberation Army. Her cover gets blown.
And she has to flee to Mexico.
Right. But the really gut-wrenching part is she has to leave her newborn son behind with his grandmother.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And the film apparently picks up 10 years later. She reunites with the son, Marco, because her own mother, his grandmother, is ill.
But the kid, he's 10 now. He doesn't get the danger his mom is still in.
That's what the review stresses. He can't really grasp the constant threat surrounding her work.
And she's maintaining this cover identity the whole time, as a journalist.
Exactly, while trying to expose these crimes by the head of the national police back in Guatemala.
So you've got this incredibly tense mix, the political thriller aspect, and this really fraught mother-son dynamic happening at the same time.
And the review suggests that tension isn't just in the plot, it's like baked into the film's atmosphere. A real sense of urgency, of threat.
How does it say the film creates that atmosphere? Any specific examples?
Oh yeah, quite a few. The score, for instance. It's described as sounding like ticking, or maybe a pulse speeding up.
Okay, so right away, that puts you on edge.
Totally. And then the visuals, things like seeing bags packed, always ready in the middle of the night.
Quick changes, wigs, getting rid of clothes.
Yeah, all these little details that signal a life lived constantly looking over your shoulder. Even the colors, a subdued palette, emphasizing that they're living in the shadows.
It sounds very deliberate, and the review mentions some specific intense scenes, too.
It does, like a contact getting stabbed in broad daylight just moments after they exchange something. And characters crawling across the floor at night just to peek out at the street. Maria apparently stays awake, gun ready, planning escape routes in her head.
That sounds exhausting just hearing about it.
Well, and that's the key phrase the reviewer uses. The tension never lets up. It's designed to be pervasive, suffocating.
Makes you feel the pressure.
Now, moving to the acting, the review gives a lot of credit to Berenice Bejo as Maria, calls her performance solid.
Solid in what way? Does it elaborate?
Yeah, it points to how she conveys both believable maternal instincts and the necessary survival skills. There's this moment described.
Oh, yeah.
Where the son asks her, will they torture me? And instead of a big speech, Maria just embraces him.
Wow. That says a lot right there.
It really does. It captures that conflict, the protector, but also the person who knows exactly what she's protecting him from.
So Bejo shows her being torn between the cause and her son.
Exactly. But the review is careful to note her drive isn't just like vengeance or recklessness. It's framed as resilience, determination, a passion for justice.
Adds complexity to the character.
Definitely. Avoids making her just a stereotype.
Okay, let's talk about the title, Mexico '86, and the structure. That's the year of the World Cup in Mexico, right?
Correct. And the review mentions key officials, including the guy Maria's targeting, the head of the national police, are planning to attend.
So you'd naturally expect that to lead to some kind of big confrontation, a climax tied to the event.
That's what you'd think, based on how thrillers usually work. But here's where the review makes a really interesting point.
Which is?
The film doesn't actually show that playing out. There's no big dramatic crescendo linked to the World Cup.
Huh. So Maria's trying to publish this death diary detailing torture and killings.
Yeah, major plot point. But according to the review, the film doesn't give you that sense of closure or justice being served in a conventional way.
And the reviewer found that.
A little frustrating is the word used.
Yeah.
You're set up for this convergence, this payoff, and it apparently doesn't quite land like you expect.
But maybe that's deliberate.
That's exactly the suggestion.
Yeah.
Perhaps that is the point.
Yeah.
Maybe Diaz is intentionally denying that easy resolution because, well, real life often doesn't provide one, especially in these situations.
So the focus stays on the personal costs, the ongoing struggle, rather than a neat political victory.
Precisely. It adds depth, the review implies.
Mm.
Even if it sacrifices that cathartic ending, it leaves you with the messy reality.
Which brings us back to Diaz's overall approach as a director. This feels very consistent with what the review said earlier about his focus.
Absolutely. It reinforces that this is deeply personal for him. The review highlights his focus on careful character work.
And showing how small, independent acts lead to bigger consequences.
Yes, rather than relying on, say, big, grandiose political monologues to spell things out.
The review calls it a quieter, although still dramatic style.
Right. Distinguishing it from what could have been, a much bloodier and hyperbolic type of film, given the subject.
So it's a choice to stay grounded in that lived experience.
Exactly. The phrase unsentimental slow burn really captures it. Based on the review, it's not about quick thrills.
It's about methodically building that tension and showing the far-reaching shadow of war and injustice.
Yeah, focusing on the enduring impact on people's lives, not just the flashpoint moments.
And just for context, the review mentions this was screening at the Glasgow Film Festival in 2025.
Yeah, just a small note about where the reviewer saw it.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the main takeaway from Mary Munoz's review here. It sounds like Mexico 86 isn't your typical political thriller.
Not at all. It seems to deliberately sidestep a conventional, satisfying ending.
Instead, it offers this really intense personal dive into the ongoing impact of political conflict, how it shakes lives, the constant threat, the impossible choices.
It prioritizes that psychological reality, that pervasive tension over a dramatic resolution.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? About how different ways of telling a story affect how we understand something like this?
Definitely. If a film about real injustice focuses so much on the personal struggle, the day-to-day peril, and doesn't give you that sense of justice served, how does that land with you, the audience?
Does it feel more real, more truthful somehow, or just unsatisfying?
It's a valid question.
And that leads right into this final thought the review kind of leaves hanging there. This idea that the lack of conclusion, the lack of justice shown, might be the whole point.
Right. So maybe the question for you, the listener, to mull over is, what is the role of art, or what should it be, when it tackles these huge real-world injustices that often don't have neat endings?
Is the filmmaker's job to give us hope, or show us the hard, often unresolved reality?
Or maybe find a way to do both. It's definitely something to chew on after hearing about a film like Mexico 86.